I need to ask you something, and I need you to really sit with it. When you became the caregiver in your family, did your siblings step up or did they step out? Because here's where nobody tells you when you take on that role. Caregiving doesn't just change the person that you're caring for, it changes every single relationship around you. And the ones that get hit the hardest, your siblings. So stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to understand something that completely changed how I see my own family. Something that I did that was unintentionally intentional. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. So, welcome back, caregivers. Welcome back to Caregiver to Health Boss, the space where we talk about everything caregiving, whatever it puts us through, and we're going to take what it puts us through and turn it into power. I'm Michelle Stevens, and if you're new here, welcome. Grab something to drink because this one is going to get real. All right, so let me take you back. When caregiving landed in my lap, I didn't just audition for the role. It just kind of fell on me, like the way that it falls on so many of us. So you're the one who lives the closest, or maybe you're the one that has more time, or maybe you're just the one who just couldn't say no. And at first, you tell yourself, we're doing this together as a family. It's a family thing. But slowly, the phone calls get shorter, the visits get infrequent, the excuses get more creative, and before you know it, you're standing in a hospital hallway at 2 a.m. alone, wondering how all of a sudden you became an only child. Well, that was my reality. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was doing something that I can only describe now as unintentionally intentional. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just 1 minute. But first, let's talk about what caregiving actually does to a sibling's relationship because it's more complex than they didn't help. There are three things that happens to the siblings when one person steps up into the caregiving role, and almost every family that I talk to goes through at least one of them. So, number one, the invisible divide. The moment that you become a primary caregiver, a line gets drawn. So, whether anyone wants to admit it or not, on one side, there's you. You're managing appointments, medication, emotions, logistics, grief, just like all of it. And on the side, there are your siblings living their lives, maybe feeling guilty, maybe not, maybe checking in occasionally. And over time, that divide doesn't just separate responsibilities, it separates worlds. So you start speaking a language they don't even understand. You've seen things they haven't seen. You're making decisions that they weren't here for. And resentment. It starts building up like water behind a dam. All right. So, number two, the roles get assigned without anyone agreeing to them. There is the roles that like these roles is where it gets really interesting. And honestly, where a lot of pain comes from because in most families, caregiving triggers old childhood dynamics. The responsible one stays responsible. The distant one gets more distant. The problem sibling suddenly becomes surprisingly helpful or completely disappears. Nobody sat down and said, here's your role, but everyone plays their part like they just rehearsed it. And as the caregiver, you're often cast in the role of the martyr. So whether you wanted that role or whether you didn't. All right. So then, number three, the grief comes at different times. And this is one that most people are just going to miss. When you are deep into caregiving, you're already grieving. You're grieving a person before the illness. You're grieving your own life, your freedom, your plans. But your siblings, they're still living a version of reality that's a little further behind yours. So when major moments hit, a diagnosis, a decline, a death, You and your siblings are grieving completely different things at completely different stages. And that mismatch is what tears families apart. I've seen it happen, I've lived it. Okay, so here's the part that I promised you: unintentionally intentional. I want you to think about the choices that you've made as a caregiver, not the obvious ones, the ones that you agonized over. I'm talking about the quiet ones, the times that you didn't call your sister back because you was just too tired. Well, also, maybe because part of you felt like she needed to fill that absence, or the time that you handled everything without asking for help. Not because you had to, but because somewhere deep down, you needed to prove something. The way that you gave updates to one sibling and not the other. The family gathering you forgot to organize. The decisions that you made alone that you could have brought them into it. So unintentionally intentional. You didn't sit down and plan any of it, but your choices shaped the exhaustion, shaped by the exhaustion, by the hurt, by a bone deep sense of abandonment, or quietly, consistently drawing a new map of your family. And here's what I want you to hear, not with guilt, but with clarity. That's not weakness, that's humanity. So when you are carrying everything and no one is helping you carry it, your nervous system starts protecting you. It starts putting up walls. It starts creating distance before anyone else can hurt you again. You weren't trying to destroy your sibling relationships, but you were unintentionally, intentionally defining them. So, and the first step to healing is just you have to be honest with all of it. So, what do you do with all this information? So, whether you're still in the thick of it caregiving or whether you're on the other side like me, here's what actually helps. One, let's name that dynamic out loud. Not in blame, not filled blow up conversation, a calm, a direct one. I felt alone during that time. I needed you to understand what that was like. That's it. You're not going to ask them to feel guilty. You're not asking them to see you. A lot of siblings, like generally, just don't know the full weight of what you had to carry. Not because they don't care, but because you protected them from it. Number two, release the scorecard, but don't rewrite history. Like that's just a big one. At some point, you have to decide, do you want to be right or do you want a relationship? Now, there was a point in time where I would tell you I wanted to be right, right? But sometimes being right isn't being happy because the scorecard, who showed up, who didn't, who called, who disappeared, that scorecard is real. Your feelings about that, they're very valid. But if you carry it forever, it becomes a cage. Releasing it doesn't mean that you forget. It just means that you stop letting it make decisions for you. And then we have number three, intentional, intentionally this time, like for real. Here's where unintentionally intentional becomes a superpower instead of a wound. So you've already been shaping your family relationships with your choices. So now consciously decide what kind of sibling relationship do you want going forward? Do you want closeness? What does that require from you? Do you need distance to heal? That's okay too. Do you want accountability before the reconciliation? Well, say that. You are not the same person that you were before caregiving. Your health boss era isn't just about your physical health, it's about the relationships that you two choose to carry into your next chapter. So, caregiving changes you. It changes the people around you, including the ones who weren't even there. The sibling stuff, it's some of the messiest, most painful, most unprocessed grief that caregivers carry because you expected strangers to disappoint you. You never expected your family. But I want to leave you with this. You survived something that most people will never fully understand. And the fact that you're here watching this, thinking about this, and feeling this means that you're not done growing. You're becoming your own health boss. And health bosses don't just heal their bodies, they heal their stories. So, if this video hit home, share it with someone who needs it, drop a comment below. I want to know, were you the sibling who showed up, or are you still carrying the weight of doing it all alone? I read every single comment. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, until next time, caregivers.